Hey, welcome back to the podcast. After 2 weeks of guest episodes, because I was on vacation, I am back today for a solo episode. And today I'm taking you behind the scenes of a recent client intake that I did. I did the review just yesterday, and I likely will bring this client's entire case back for a case study episode in the future, but I want to wait until she's had time she's had time to implement the care plan that I gave to her and report back with how things are going, what her results are. So we'll talk more about this case in the future, but she brought up something on her intake form that I think is really important, really relatable, and that I have some advice and guidance that I can kind of shed light on that might help a lot of you. So, to just give a little bit of backstory on this case, this is a client that she and I have worked together before in the past. Since we worked together the first time, she's had another baby. She's been through breastfeeding this baby. She has weaned, and now she is in a place where she is just trying to kind of reclaim her body, reclaim her hormones, get things in line, and isn't happy with how she's currently feeling. So we chatted and decided that it was a good time to do an HTMA retest because she had one in the past. But like I just said, she's been through all of these life events since our last HTMA test. And it's really important to be able to customize someone's plan specifically to what their body needs so that we can get them making progress and getting towards their goals and really feeling better and seeing the changes that they desire much quicker than if we are just creating a plan based off symptoms alone. It's so important to combine the client history, client symptoms, client goals with the actual data to create the plan to help expedite results. So, and another important thing to know about this client is that she has been diagnosed with PCOS and Hashimoto's. So we already know because of the Hashimoto's diagnosis that there is some, thyroid insufficiency. Because of the PCOS, we also know that there's likely some metabolic things that we need to focus on and correct for her. And we knew these things with her last test and we worked on them. But again, she got pregnant. And then, now here we are. So, um, like I said, I will bring the whole case back. So I'm not going to get into all of the results and what the test showed. But the very first thing, like when I sit down to review someone's results when they come in, is I go back to their intake form. I have a pretty detailed intake form where I ask you a lot of questions because I'm really digging in and trying to understand your history, what your current symptoms are, and what your goals are. And there is a section on there where I ask questions specifically about nutrition, like what are your current normal habits? What does a normal day look like for you? Do you follow any type of specific diet or guidelines? Do you have to follow a restriction for any reason, like for an allergy or anything? And then there's also certain points through the intake form that I'm asking open-ended questions where you have free space to write it to answer, my prompt or my question. Or there's honestly one at the bottom that's like, what else do you need to share with me? Or do you feel like it's important? And throughout this intake form, one of the things that she brought up was that she felt like nutrition was the hardest piece for her to kind of really understand what it is her body even needs, and then also be consistent with those recommendations and like making healthy choices. And she said, I am not going to cook myself a meal separate from what my family is going to have. And I think for so many women, moms especially, we can relate to this because we're already doing the most. We are cooking dinner, we're cleaning up dishes, we're doing laundry, we're maintaining the household. Like the last thing that we want to do, like figuring out what we're cooking for the first dinner is hard enough. The last thing we want to do is cook a second dinner and then eat separately from our family. And I'm really big on like sitting down to family dinner. That is like a core value of mine and my family, and a practice that we do here in my household. And I also think it has a lot of health benefits. For number one, just like sitting down at a table and being kind of in a calm setting and really focused just on your food and the family and people around you, as opposed to like sitting down with a plate on the couch in front of the TV. Um, you're more intentional and you can be more in tune with your body and pick up on those hunger cues and fullness cues more easily when you're sitting down at the table and are kind of focused on your food and that's the task at hand. So um, and I'm also totally on board with I'm not cooking myself a separate meal from my family. But I also want to touch on the piece that in some ways, and I'm not saying in every way, this is definitely not a black and white. There's absolutely gray area here. But I think in some ways, if you did that routinely, if you are eating something totally different than what your family is eating, especially once your kids reach a certain age, I think that can and probably does impact their thoughts about food, their relationship with food, especially if you're doing it from the stance of like, I can't have what you all are eating. I have to have this. And you're starting that you're starting that differentiation of these are good foods, these are bad foods, because I'm saying I can't have that. I personally do not want to instill that in my children. And you guys probably already know if you've been hanging out with me for a while that I very much think that all foods can fit and that we don't have to follow strict rules and guidelines in order to be our healthiest self. The only time I really think you should be following like a strict I can't have this type of thing is if you truly have a like literal allergy to it, or a severe sensitivity that is causing your body a lot of inflammation and symptoms and things. And then what I would say to that side note is you need to work on that, find the root cause of that, fix it, and then reintroduce that food. But that's another story for a different day. So I wanted to give this client some advice, some of my insights, some of my thoughts on how I handle this in my own life. And as I was talking through it on the recording I was making for her, I was like, I really need to bring this to the podcast because this is so relatable. This is such a problem that so many moms and probably women too, just like with their husbands, deal with. And I think it's something we need to talk more about. So, the advice that I shared and kind of the insight is number one, like I just kind of said, this is so relatable. I have a very picky husband who does not eat hardly any vegetables and is not very open to trying new things. He doesn't like a lot of foods and he's just picky. And then my children are 8 and younger. And so pickiness at those ages is just sort of normal. I work hard to introduce them to new foods, encourage them to try new foods, but um, my 5-year-old Kinley, my daughter, is probably the best about that, and has the widest palate, I guess. Like she does like a lot of vegetables and will eat like avocados, broccoli, carrots. My 8-year-old son, he also has some like sensory issues and things, and he has a very selective, very narrow diet, and that is just part of it's just part of him. It's not really something like, yes, we still work on it. Yes, I still, encourage him to try things, but it's not something that I push with him. And there are reasons for that. Then, I have, of course, my 3-year-old. And, one of the things we've recently this year been working through with him was that he was not eating very many meat at all. Chicken nuggets was about the meat we could get down this kid. And he has really low iron. And that's obviously absolutely connected. And it was impacting his sleep. And so we had to really work on that. And thankfully we have been, and he's eating a few more things now, but it's still a struggle. And, there's always a balance there between encouraging your kids to try new things, giving them the opportunity to try more things, putting things on their plate, even if you don't want them to be there, and forcing it. And I think we do have to be careful when we are forcing them to try things or eat things just because we put it on their plate that messes with their internal cues and also just like their autonomy around food. And again, like creating this mindset for them of these are good foods, these are bad foods. I've gotten off on a like side tangent here. But I thought that was really important to explain kind of while I was talking through all of that. Now, back to I don't want to cook a separate meal for myself versus my family. I also have a very picky family. There are lots of things that I will eat that they will not even consider eating. Like it's just a hard no for them. So the way that I have learned to deal with that and work through that is number one, I think about the meals that we have together for us specifically. And I know that this is going to be different probably for every family, especially when you have really little kids, if you're like a stay-at-home mom or a work from home mom. But in our current lifestyle, the majority of the time, Monday through Friday, we don't eat breakfast together. We don't eat lunch together. I'm on my own for those meals. So I try to really optimize those meals to be more, definitely not perfect, but more like in alignment with healthy things that my family won't consume or they don't want. This looks like, breakfast is not honestly that big of a deal because we do breakfast together on the weekends. And like, we do a traditional breakfast. Like we have eggs, we have bacon, we have sausage, we have, like, I don't know, a more traditional like cooked breakfast. And that's a totally fine breakfast for me to have through the week too. Now, sometimes I do shakes or smoothies or yogurt bowls. Like my kids won't eat Greek yogurt. They will do regular yogurt. But, like that's breakfast is not as big of a deal, I guess. But when it comes to lunch, I take advantage of lunch as an opportunity for me to cook and consume those meals that my family won't eat. So I will sometimes batch cook this like on a Sunday. I don't love to meal prep, honestly. I just have never, it just does not appeal to me, but it's just me. But sometimes I will. Sometimes I'll get like a hankering, like I really want this thing. Like one of the things that I really like are these Greek chicken bowls. And my family, they don't want that. They don't want the rice, the cucumbers, the tomatoes, the feta cheese, the tzatziki that goes with that. So like I will make that for myself, prep it, and then I've got lunch for 3-ish days that week. Another one is like an egg roll in a bowl situation. They're not going to eat that, but I love it. So sometimes I will cook that kind of as a meal prep for the week, and it'll give me lunch for 3-4 days. So that's one thing that I would say is like, if you feel like nutrition is difficult for you and one of the reasons that it's hard for you is because of the pickiness of your family and their unwillingness to eat certain things or eat a healthier diet, then focus on breakfast and lunch or whatever meals for you in your situation that you're not consuming with them and optimize those. Then when it comes to dinner, when you are sitting down with your family and you're consuming a meal together, number one, give yourself a lot of grace. I think that there is kind of this pressure or misconception out there that we have to have these sort of like almost elaborate meals, almost like a meal you would get at like a fancy restaurant or something in order for it to be a healthy meal. And that's not really true. A lot of times my clients seem surprised to see the things that I eat and I fix for my family on a routine basis because it's almost like in their mind, they've taken things off the list of possibilities. Like we have spaghetti at my house on regular, and they're like, oh, wait, that's like a high carb thing because of the pasta. I'm like, we love pasta. I love pasta. I'm not giving up pasta. I add meat to my spaghetti sauce. I typically have like a salad on the side, or I'll do some roasted veggies on the side. And that's how you balance out the meal. Like it's not just I'm sitting down to consume this large bowl of pasta. It's the other components of the meal that I'm bringing in that helps make it more balanced and make it a healthier option. I also do things like get whole wheat noodles instead of just the regular ones because every little bit helps. So then so that's one thing. Like be realistic with what your family will consume, what it is they will eat, and go with that and look at the structure and be like, okay, what can I add here? To piggyback off of that, one of the things that I do, because vegetables specifically are like the struggle in my household for things I will eat, but other people won't, is I will fix a vegetable side for myself that I know either I'm the only one that's going to eat it or me and Kinley are the only ones that are going to eat it. And that's totally fine. I don't feel like that is causing me much extra work. And me and or us, if she's having it too, are then getting the benefits of that added, nutrition and fiber that we wouldn't get if I was just like, oh, well, Blake and the other kids are not going to eat this steamed broccoli, so I'm just not going to fix it. I'm not going to buy it. I think in general, a good approach to nutritional changes and adjustments is not to focus on it from a negative mindset, like not to say like, okay, I can't do this. I can't have that. I shouldn't be doing this. I need to cut this down, and really kind of flipping that on its head and looking at how you can add to what you're already doing to improve it or make it better. And that is so much easier for, even myself to come at that with that mindset. It doesn't feel so restrictive. And so like we don't have this internal feeling of like needing to fight against it. It almost kind of becomes fun a little bit to be like, okay, well, let me think through that. Like maybe it just is fun for me because like I'm a problem solver. I like that type of thought process, but it's like, okay, this is the meal that I normally fix. Like how can I jazz it up? How can I do it a little differently to make it better and more balanced? So I hope that this was helpful and that you guys get some good ideas from that, can take this and kind of run with it. If you have any questions, please reach out. Happy to chat anytime. If you guys are new here and you are looking for a resource to help you get started on balancing your hormones and making over your periods, there is a resource linked for you in the show notes called Hormones 101. It's a private podcast series. It's 8 episodes. You can listen to the entire thing in under 24 minutes or in about 24 minutes. And it's a great place for you to get started with some of the foundations that you need to kind of tackle first. So I hope you guys have a great week, and I'll chat to you next week.